Hey guys, welcome to the 12th C programming tutorial, and in this tutorial we're going to finish up looking at the while loop. And in this tutorial I'm going to be showing you how to make a program where it will continually ask the user to enter a number, and then once the user enters -1 it will print out the sum of all the numbers that the user entered. So for example, if the user entered 4, 5, and -1, it'll print out 9, since the sum of 4 and 5 is 9. Alright, so let's just go ahead and do that. The first thing that we're going to do is create an integer variable to hold the number that the user enters. So we're going to say int input equals 0. Then we're going to go ahead and create another integer variable to hold the sum of all the numbers that the user entered. So I'm just going to say int sum equals 0. Alright, then what I'm going to do right here is create a while loop, and I want this while loop to continually loop while the input doesn't equal -1. So as soon as the user enters a -1, it will just exit the loop and then print out the sum of all the numbers entered. Alright, so now we need to create the body for our loop, or all of the code that we want to happen inside of our loop right here. And the first thing that we want it to do is add the input onto the existing sum. So what we're going to do is we're going to say sum plus equals input. And basically what plus equals will do is it will just add input onto this sum variable. So basically this right here is the same as saying sum equals sum plus input. So it'll basically just add sum and input together and then just store the result in sum. Alright, this is just the shorthand way of doing it, and it's the way I prefer to do it. Alright, and then after it adds the input onto the sum, it's going to ask the user to enter a number. So it's going to say printf please enter a number, and then we're just going to read the number that the user entered, and we're going to read it into this input variable right here. So we're going to say scanf, and we're reading an integer, so we need to do modulus I, then comma, then ampersand input, since we're going to be reading the number that the user entered into this input variable right here. And remember, we need to have that ampersand there since we're reading. Alright, so this will basically just continually loop and add on to the sum as long as the user doesn't equal -1. So let's just go ahead and run through this. The first thing that it's going to do right here is just create a new integer variable called input and set it equal to 0. Then it's going to create another integer variable called sum and set that equal to 0 as well. Then it's going to say while the input doesn't equal -1, while the input is currently 0, then we're going to loop. So it just enters this loop right here, and it says sum plus equals input. So it's just adding 0, which is the input, onto sum, and sum is also 0. So now the contents of sum is equal to 0. Then it will ask the user to enter a number. The user enters a number, and this line of code right here will read the number entered into this variable right here. So let's just say that the user entered the number 5. Then it will come back up here and check and see if input is equal to -1. Input is equal to 5, so it's not equal to -1, so it'll do this line of code right here. So it will say sum plus equals input. So it will add the value of input onto the sum. The value of input is 5, so now the value of sum is 5 as well. Then it will proceed to this line of code, ask the user for another number. Let's say they enter 3 this time. Then this line of code will read it. Then we'll go back up here and see if input doesn't equal -1. Input is 3, so of course 3 doesn't equal -1. It'll do this line of code right here. It will just add 3 onto what sum already is, and remember sum is 5. So now it just added 3 to 5 and stored the result in sum. So now sum is equal to 8. Now it'll ask the user for another number. Let's say they enter -1 this time. This will read it into input. Now, is input equal to -1? Yes, input is equal to -1, so it'll exit the loop. Now, all that we need to do is print out the value of sum. So what we're going to do is printf the sum of all the numbers entered is %I, and then we're going to go ahead and end the line right there. And then we just want to replace this %I, or this modulus I right here, with the value of sum. So we're just going to do comma and then write sum. Alright, so now let's just go ahead and run this program and make sure that it works. So it says please enter a number. Let's go ahead and enter 5. Then we'll enter 3. We enter -1. and it says the sum of all the numbers entered is 8, because 5 plus 3 is 8. Now let's go ahead and run it and add more than just 2. So we'll do 5, 3, 8, 4, 9, and 10. Then we enter -1, and we'll add all these numbers up, and we see the sum of all the numbers entered is 39. So all these numbers right here added up is 39. Alright, so that's pretty much it for this tutorial, so see you guys.